The previous session we discussed about the vSwitch configuration, standard switch, vSphere standard switch. What are the options are available? We are just going to review again what are the options are available, how to change, and then we'll proceed with create a virtual switch, how to create and how to map a physical NIC card. Go to configuration tab. So under configuration, we are going to networking. And this is a vSwitch standard vSwitch properties. I'm going to click on properties, vSwitch properties. There are two different properties tabs are available. If you want to click on respective switch properties, you can click on properties of respective switch. Okay. There is one more properties tab under networking main tab under right corner. Okay. So first we are going to see what is the properties of virtual switch, which is created by default during the ESXi host installation. We didn't create this particular vSwitch. The vSwitch, the standard switch, it is going to create by default during ESXi host installation. As soon as ESXi host installation is completed, we connect it to DCUI screen, wherein we assign an IP address, isn't it? What is that IP address? Where we are assigning IP address? We are assigning that IP address to this particular switch which was created during installation. See here that management IP information, this is IP information we have requested. This is a management IP we assigned during ESXi hosting, right after ESXi host installation. Now we are going to create a switch, and what is the management network, what is a VM network, we are going to see that. First, let us go to click on properties and see what are the options are available by a switch. Okay, click on properties. See here, the ports, first one is, the first one selected one is under vSwitch. It is showing 120 ports. Just move the cursor to that particular point so that, yeah. Then we are going to click on edit. Click on edit. See here, I can change the ports, number of ports according to my requirement. Generally, the ports in the sense, how many ports are required for this vSwitch. It is directly proportionate to how many VMs we are going to install, we are going to deploy on this particular ESXi host. Why we need a switch? We need to connect the systems. Which systems? Virtual machines. Virtual machines where we are deploying on this particular ESXi host. So if we are deploying 10 virtual machines, even 15 ports also fine. It doesn't matter how many ports are available, but we can see how many ports we can create until 4088 ports. Drop down that number of ports, we can create these many ports. But practically we cannot use those many ports. Practically we are not in a position to deploy those many VMs. So minimum ports are required to perform our actions. Okay, let it keep it whatever the ports are available, leave the default settings. Okay. Next is MTU setting. We are not going to change in enterprise environment in any organization. Any specific requirement, for example, one particular application is required to perform some network operations. In that KB article, they mentioned that change the MTU settings to certain value. Then we have to come here and then change. Okay, this is one. Next tab is security. These are features. Even after creating a virtual switch, we are not going to change. When we are going to change, as per the requirement, we should have a knowledge what is a Prometheus mode, what is a MAC address change, where it is applicable, just a brief information. No need to deep dive, because this information is most helpful for network engineers. The network engineers may ask what is the configuration of Prometheus mode on your virtual switch. then you should in a position to go and check that respect to ESXi host. Where to go, how to check? Just simply configuration tab and vSwitch properties, this configuration is available. You should have an idea where this configuration. If anyone asks what is a Prometheus mode setting, you should check and give the information. That is the requirement. According to any specific application requirement, we can change here. Okay. What is a traffic shaping? Click on traffic shaping. Here, different traffic shaping, then how much bandwidth load, we can restrict the bandwidth. But in any organization, in past 20 years of experience, I didn't change these settings. I didn't address these settings. Okay, so we can leave it to default settings, no issues. Whatever the version we are going to use, I haven't changed this setting in my career. Okay, click on NIC teaming. What is a NIC teaming? NIC teaming is nothing but here the virtual NIC adapter. Virtual NIC adapter, how many NICs adapters are available in my ESXi host? We call it as a redundant. What is a redundant? If one port, one network card is having any problem on the network card, what is going to happen? The entire traffic of my virtual machines, my virtual servers, I'm going to deploy 10 virtual servers or 50 virtual servers. If the 50 virtual servers are working on single point of failure in the sense, if only one NIC card assigned to this particular switch, my all 50 servers traffic has to flow from this particular switch and goes to outside world through this particular NIC card, NIC port. If something happens to this NIC card, what will happen? All my 50 servers which are hosted on this ESXi host will get impact. So we need to make sure redundancy. Redundancy in the sense we need to add one more NIC card, two NIC cards. If one thing failed, other one will take into picture. Now here the active adapter, standby adapter comes in picture. What is active? What is standby? If any issue comes in picture, the active adapter something have an issue. Simply it is going to fail over to standby adapter. That in the sense two NIC cards. How to add? Where to add these NIC cards? Here I cannot add any NIC cards. Let me show you how to add a NIC card. I'm going to show this adding NIC card in another switch. We are going to create a switch and then we'll see how to add a NIC card and how it is going to work. We'll see. These are the default options. Load sharing, how the load sharing is going to happen, how the network failure failure detection, how it has to detect the network failure. There are different options. Link status only, drop down. For each option, there is a drop down. What to setting, where to change the setting. If you want to change any setting, the KB articles available. The network engineers are going to provide what is the configuration you need to choose. By default, they leave it a default settings. According to default settings only, we will proceed. If any specific requirements, we can come over here and choose the options. Okay, these are the vSwitch properties under switch, vSwitch. Click cancel. Whatever the settings are available under this switch properties, click cancel. Whatever the switch properties are available, the same standby, security mode, and all those things available in respect to port group. Select VM network, click on edit. See what are the options are going to come here. For this VM network, this particular port group I am going to call it as, what is this? This is a port group to establish communication for the virtual machines. What is the label? I can give the label for this port group. If I'm going to create a network port group, what I'm going to give finance port group. What is a VLAN ID? According to network engineer, I'm going to provide a VLAN ID here. They are going to provide certain IP ranges for this particular network. According to their IP range, whatever the systems we are going to deploy, we are going to assign IP address to those systems. How the systems are communicating to outside physical switch through this virtual switch, through this particular port group, we are going to assign the VLAN ID. according to network engineering VLAN ID. Network engineers are going to provide this is the network range. For this network range to communicate, you need to use this VLAN ID. So whatever the VLAN ID, it is important. Whatever the network label, it is as per our wish. They are going to network engineers is going to provide only IP address range, VLAN ID. What is subnet mask? What is a gateway? What is VLAN ID? The IP address range and all those information where we are going to mention, we are going to mention on the respective virtual machine. Once we loaded the operating system, we are going to assign an IP address. So that IP address need to send a communication to outside world. To send communication to outside world, where this virtual machine is connected, wherever this virtual machine is connected, that virtual machine port group, where it is connected to a virtual switch. On this virtual switch, where it is connected, it is going to connect to some port group. On that port group, we need to make sure that particular VLAN ID mentioned. We need to mention the VLAN ID. Drop down here, VLAN ID. If they provide VLAN ID, we need to mention what is that? Up to 4095. They are going to provide the VLAN ID. What is the VLAN ID for this particular range? Just we need to come over here, simply type, just type 113. Anything within that, whatever the range they are going to provide, whatever the VLAN ID they are going to provide. Why it is important? They are going to provide an IP range. That IP range where we are using certain systems we are using. If that system is going to deploy on this particular ESXi host, their operating system, once operating system installed, we are going to assign IP address. That IP address has to communicate to outside world. To communicate outside world, that virtual machine need to connect a virtual switch. On this particular virtual switch, we need to make sure that port group, whatever the port group we are going to create, that port group is going to have a VLAN ID assignment here. Okay, we'll see that. Here in respective port group, we need to check what is a VLAN ID for this particular system. Okay, so click on cancel. Next is management network. In management network, click on edit. See here, there are two options. While creating a virtual switch, there are two options. What are those two options? One is for management. Management in the sense to establish communication to this ESXi host. What is VM network port group? VM network port group is meant to establish communication VMs to outside world. What is management network port group? Management network port group is meant for to establish communication to this particular ESXi host to perform some management action. There are two port groups are available. One is management port group, other one is the VM network port group. If we are selecting a VM network, that port group is meant for establishing communication that respective VM needs to communicate to outside world. Management network port group is meant for establishing communication to the ESXi host from outside world to the ESXi host. To establish communication, what we need to do? We need to assign an IP address. That's what you are going to see here. What is that management purpose? What are the options are available? Why we are creating a management network? By default, see here there are different checkboxes are available. vMotion, fault tolerance, management traffic, ISKC port binding. Here also there is a VLAN ID. This VLAN ID also who is going to provide? That network engineer is going to provide. According to network engineer, we are going to assign. Under general tab, what are the management options? Move the mouse to the cursor, vMotion. vMotion, we are going to discuss about what is vMotion, what is a fault tolerance, what is a management traffic. Management traffic is nothing but we are managing this ESXi host. How we connected this ESXi host? We are using VC client. Under VC client, we entered the IP address. What IP address we entered? This particular ESXi host. Where we assigned on this particular management network interface, we assigned an IP address by which we are able to connect this particular ESXi host and doing all these management tasks. That's the reason we call it as a management network interface. What purpose we are going to use? Are we using just management purpose? Are we using vMotion purpose? Are we using fault tolerance purpose? But what purpose we are going to use, we can choose respect to port group option. Okay. Then IP setting. We can change the IP setting here. Generally, this IP setting is meant for if it is a management, we connected to this particular ESXi host by using this IP only. If you want to change the IP to this particular management IP, where to change on the DCO screen. By connecting to console DCO screen, we need to change this IP. If you change the IP address here, what will happen? You will lose the disconnect. You are going to lose the connection. Okay, what is the changes we are going to do to management network? Whatever the interface you connected to this particular ESX servers, that IP address, if you want to do any modification, you need to connect to DCO screen only. You cannot change modification over here. If you change the modification, you are going to lose the connection. Okay, make sure what I am going to change. If you are planning to change the IP address of this management interface, you need to connect to DCO screen. But why we connected here? To see what is the IP address, what is a gateway, what is a subnet mask, and other information. Okay. Security policy, traffic shaping, all these options are by default will applicable inherent from this top. We click on switch properties. We switch 120 ports, we click on edit. What are the security policies, IP, traffic shaping, NIC teaming, these last three tabs, security, traffic shaping, NIC teaming. All these options by default it will be inherent from the switch properties. What is a we selected a vSwitch and say click on edit, right? There, if you want to change anything on switch properties, we need to change. Here, what are the options? It is going to inherent. If you want to change, you can change, but it is going to applicable for respective port group only. Whatever the policies you are going to change, it is going to applicable to respective port group. By default, whatever the switch properties are there, the same switch properties are going to inherent to this particular port groups. On port group, you can, if you want, you can change. By default, in enterprise environment, we'll leave it as a default. Whatever the switch properties are there, the same switch properties are going to applicable to this particular port group properties as well. Okay, these are the switch properties. Now we are going to go ahead and click on switch. How to create a switch? Why to click on switch? What is the basic rule here? Basic rule is nothing but we need to click cancel, close. The basic rule is to create a switch. Why we are creating a switch? Switch is required to establish communication, either management purpose or to connect number of systems. Where we are going to deploy system on this ESXi host, we are going to deploy 5 systems or 2 systems or 3 systems. How they are going to establish communication to outside world? To establish communication to outside world, I need a switch. Go to room number concept. Room concept, there are systems are available. I need a switch to connect to each other to send a packet to outside. I need to connect to either router or either other switch. Similar way, here why I am creating a switch, I am going to create a switch to establish respective communication. To establish respective communication, what we need, why we are creating a switch? To create a switch, I can create number of switches, but what purpose I'm creating? To establish communication. To establish communication, what I need? A physical port of the ESXi host. That in the sense, whenever I'm planning to create a switch, I should have a physical port on the ESXi host. Without physical port availability, I am not in a position to establish communication to outside world. We'll see that. Now, I'm going to how to create a switch. What are the switches available now? It is a default switch which is created by during installation ESXi hostess. Now I'm going to create a switch. Click on add networking. Where to click on add networking? On the configuration tab, under networking tab, I am going to click on add networking. Configuration, networking, click on add networking. See here, here, I'm going to create a switch. Now it is going to ask two options. What type of switch do you want to create? I can create a virtual machine. See, what is a label? Connection types. There are two types by default. Virtual machine traffic. The other one is vMkernel. The management interface, management network, whatever the management network we are going to use, that port group by default it called as a vMkernel. vMkernel. vMkernel is nothing but it is the management interface. It is going to create a vMkernel port group. vMkernel port group is meant for to establish communication to ESXi host to perform certain function. Whereas in virtual machine added labeled network to handle virtual machine network traffic. See, virtual machine means here add a network. Add a network to what is a network? What is the purpose of network? To establish communication to virtual network traffic. If you want to create a switch to establish virtual machine network traffic, I need to choose virtual machine port group. I'm creating a switch. While creating a switch, by default, it is going to provide two options. It is not a checkbox, it is a bullet. Bullet in the sense I can choose only one option. So what purpose I'm going to create a switch? Am I creating a switch for management purpose? Am I creating a switch for virtual machine traffic? So by default, I am selecting this. I need to establish communication. Management interface is already there. So whatever the switch I'm going to create, it is purpose of virtual machine. So select that. The next option is VM kernel. What is this VM kernel? VM kernel is nothing but to establish communication. See here, this VM kernel TCP/IP Slack handles the traffic for ESXi services. What are the ESXi services? vSphere, vMotion, IceKC, NFS, and other host management Any function, if you want to perform certain management task, it is going to perform. What is the management task? We are going to discuss in later topics. But when we are going to create a VM kernel port group, we are going to create a VM kernel port group. If you want to perform any certain management task, it could be vMotion network, it could be SKC, NFS, any kind of management network, I have to select VM kernel port group. Okay, we'll see that how to create a port group for management interface. We'll see it during the respective topic. Now we are going to proceed with virtual machine. Okay, let's proceed with virtual machine. Select virtual machine and proceed next. See here, it is going to show you default options. What is the default options? I can select any network cards. What is the network cards available? Already 3 network cards are available. Out of 3 network cards, 1 network card is already assigned to that vSwitch 0. I'm going to create a new switch. To that new switch, I need to assign a port group, NIC card. What is a NIC card? Physical NIC cards are available on the system. There are 2 more NIC cards are available. I'm going to select what is available. VM NIC is 1 is available. I'm going to select by default it's selected. I can proceed with next. If you want to, you can change by selecting VM NIC 2 also. Doesn't matter. Okay, what are the NIC we need to select? Based on, for example, network engineer is going to provide this NIC is communicated for the backup purpose. This NIC is communicated for the respective interface. According to network engineer, they are going to pass the cable on this physical port to that physical switch. According to their information, I need to choose which NIC is performing my requirement. So I need to select respective switch. During the ESXi host installation deployment to create a network port groups, The deployment is going to happen based on the design, the network engineer. The network engineer is going to connect. The network engineer is going to connect that particular port and the physical. What port it is connected. That port is what purpose it is connected. What are the VLANs created on that respective port. Those all information they are going to provide to VMware administrator. Whatever the VLANs are available, those VLANs they are going to provide the information according to VLAN. This VLAN is meant for finance group. This VLAN is meant for HR group. So I need to create those many VLANs, those many virtual machine port groups to deploy virtual machines. We'll see that. Okay, one NIC is selected. How to select which NIC you need to select? According we are going to select NIC according to the network engineer information. Okay, click next. Here, I'm going to create a label. First, initial one label. For example, I'm creating a finance. Click finance, select finance. I'm giving a port group label. My they provided finance label is 100, VLAN 100. Mention 100, VLAN ID 100. Okay, that in the sense I created a port group for a finance systems. If I am going to deploy a finance related system, finance server on this particular ESX servers, I am going to select this port group to send the traffic to this finance groups. Okay, click next. Finish. So see this, what is a port switch is created by default one port group. What are the port group we created? Finance port group is created. What is the VLAN ID? I can see the VLAN ID, right? It is where I'm going to select VLAN ID according to network configuration. Now click on properties of this particular switch and see what are the options are available. See default ports. By default, it is going to create 120 ports. If it is a old version, by default ports is 8 ports. Okay. According to version, it is going to change. So vSwitch properties. If you want to change vSwitch properties, select vSwitch and click on edit. I can choose anything. I can choose whatever information is required. I can choose until change. I can choose number of ports. I can change the security policies. Okay, anything I can change. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a NIC card for this particular switch. I need to add to perform a NIC teaming. So cancel. Where to add a network adapter. During the switch creation, I selected only one NIC card. Now I would like to add one more NIC card to this particular switch to maintain redundancy. How to do that? Click on network adapters. See here, it is showing the network adapter, what is a MAC address, what is a negotiation, duplex setting, everything it is going to show here. Now I'm going to, if you want to change any settings, click edit here and see what are the options are available. Duplex setting. Duplex setting. While working on duplex setting, it is very important. What is the default duplex setting? This duplex setting, it should be by default auto on all switches, network card, all whatever the network cards are available. By default, it will be on auto. If the network engineer says that this NIC card, what is the duplex setting? You need to choose respect to duplex setting. By default, half duplex, full duplex, according to network. If the network physical switches port is configured with some duplex setting, if it is auto, it is going to auto negotiate. If they mention that you need to choose the respect to duplex setting, you need to come over here and change the duplex setting. Okay. By default, any organization, we leave it as auto. Okay, click auto negotiation, cancel. If you are not sure what action you are going to perform, don't click on OK. Always click on cancel. If you are going to change something, then click on OK. Even not changing, just going to view what is the setting is available. Just click, go to that setting, click cancel. Don't click on OK. If you click on OK, if by mistake, if you change something, you forgot what the change you did, it is going to consideration and it is going to impact in a business. Okay, click cancel. Even if you have access to this environment, in enterprise environment, if you have in any environment in a production, don't click on OK. Okay, please click on cancel. If you are not sure what action you are going to do, always choose cancel. Okay, now come back to the topic. Now I'm going to add a NIC card here. How to add a NIC card? Click on add. See what are the options are available. Any NICs are available which are not assigned to any switch. There is one unclaimed adapter. What is unclaimed adapter? Only one NIC card is there, that is VMNIC2. Select that one. I cannot select the other switch NIC card. Any switch, it should be connected to only one NIC card. One NIC card, the same NIC card which is available cannot be connected to two switches. Let me clarify again. Whatever the port, we are mapping one physical port of ESXi host to the switch, vSwitch, virtual switch. I cannot assign one NIC card to two switches. If you select, for example, here, if you select vSwitch adapter, one more NIC card also it is showing here. But by mistake, if you select this, try to select that. Once you select, if you click next, what it will say is it is already assigned to another switch. If you proceed to next, it is going to remove from that particular switch and assign to this particular switch. Make sure you are not going to select other switch NIC cards because it is going to impact the production environment. Okay, so what are the free NIC cards available here? Free NIC card is only without assigning one card is available, that is VMNIC2. I'm going to select that. Click next. See, two NIC cards are available. See, now the concept has come in picture. What is active adapters? I can make it as both active adapters. Both are going to work as a load balancing. If you want to make it as one as a standby adapter, I can select a respective NIC card and move down. Click on move down. Move down. See here, what is happening here? I have two NIC cards. This is a NIC taming, we call it as. NIC taming in the sense, redundancy I'm going to maintain. For this particular switch, I'm going to maintain, I have two physical ports, which if one physical port is down, I can establish communication with the other one. If I click standby adapter, that adapter will be on standby mode. If primary one active adapter fails, then automatically the standby adapter will take into consideration. Okay, you can make it as a NIC taming, active passive, or both active also, as per your wish. Okay, now click next. Let's see how to change this. We added two NIC cards. Finish. See here, two NIC cards are available, VMNIC1, VMNIC2. Okay, now come back to the ports, where the teaming is available. On the vSwitch, click edit, NIC teaming. I can come over here, I can change the setting also from here. If you want to change VMNIC1 as a primary adapter, active adapter, I can do that. Select the VMNIC1, move up, move up. What is the primary adapter? I can change the order, whatever the way you want to use. You can make it as unused also. Don't use that network card. You can choose move down, it will come to unused adapter. But doesn't make any sense to add. Why you are adding two NIC cards to the switch? It is to maintain redundancy. So we need to make sure what purpose we are going to do so. Okay. Now click OK. Now NIC taming is done. Now what is the properties? Now I'm going to do. I need to have 10 VLANs available, 10 groups. I need to create 10 types of systems I'm going to deploy on this ESXi host. Those 10 types of systems are having a different IP information. Each IP is forming different VLANs. Who is going to provide? The network engineer is going to provide. This finance system should be send the packet to this particular VLAN ID. HR group. This packet should go to this particular network. So I'm going to create a port groups. I'm going to deploy HR system, finance system, and all those things. Then I need to make sure that port groups are available on this particular switch. How to add port groups? Click on add now. See here, again the same concept comes in picture. Do you want to add a management network or do you want to virtual machine? Now I need purpose of virtual machine. I need to create a number of ports to establish different systems. Click virtual machine, click next. Now make it HR, label make it as HR, port number 200, VLAN ID of 200, click next. That's it, finish. This is the way we are going to add port groups. If you want to add one more port group, management means management systems, or you can go to executive group, executive systems. What are the executive systems we can create it? What are the port group you want? What are the system you are going to deploy on this ESX servers? We need to make sure storage availability. We need to make sure network availability. That system need to connect such a network means who is going to provide the information? Network engineer is going to provide the information. This system need to assign this IP address. This IP address having this subnet mask, this gateway. And this is going to establish communication on this particular VLAN ID. Only those information they are going to provide. It's our responsibility as a VMware administrator. If that system is going to deploy on this particular ESX servers, I need to make sure storage is available, resources are available, but the packet has to travel to outside. To travel outside, what is I need to make sure is that VLAN is available on this switch or not. If VLAN is not available, I'm going to create. If that application is related to web servers, that web server they are going to provide an IP address and they are going to provide VLAN ID. Now I'm going to create a virtual port group. The virtual port group is not available with that respective VLAN ID. So click on add. Virtual machine next. Make it label as a web servers. Port group 300. VLAN ID 300. Next. Finish. Okay, click close. What I did, I created a switch and I created a port groups. Come down a little bit, there are 3 port groups are available. That in the sense, I can deploy 3 types of systems. Finance system I can deploy. Finance system if I assign an IP address finance system, that finance system can send communication to this finance port group to this outside world to NICs. See the label how it is different. This is entire the logical connection on the switch. If you see here, this particular place, see, this is entire logical connection. There is no cable, there is no patch cable. This is entirely logical connection, that's it. Whatever the virtual machine you are going to deploy, if you deploy finance system, the finance system here, it is going to show one system here. I'm going to deploy one system. We are going to ready to create a virtual machine now. We created a port groups. We have created a virtual switch, everything ready. If you want to deploy HR system, deploy, this is a CPU, four CPUs, 4 GB RAM and 40 GB disk and network is HR. Now resources are ready, storage ready, network ready. So I can start deploying virtual machines. Where to deploy, why we are creating a virtual switch, why we are creating NIC cards. Network readiness, network ready for what? To send the virtual machine traffic to outside world. So if I deploy HR system here, the virtual VM will be here, and I'm going to choose this HR port group. and this packet is going to travel to this particular one of the NIC card and sends outside. Where it outside, it is going to connect to outside network. Okay, we are going to see deploy virtual machines. We can create a port groups, virtual machine port group. See here, what is the name it is going to show here? Virtual machine port group. What type of switch? It is a standard switch. How many switches are available? vSwitch 0, vSwitch 1. How many standard switches are available on this ESXi host? I can create n number of switches. I'm going to create one more switch. Let's see what is going to happen. Create a switch, go to add networking. Okay, proceed with next, virtual machine next. Now, is any adapter is available? There is no network adapters available. What I can do? Without adapter, I can proceed next. Let's see what it is going to show you. I'm going to, it is high, we cannot select. There is no available NIC cards availability. I'm going to create a switch. What it is going to represent? Let's see. We can create next. Port group, give the finance to DB server. Make it as a DB server. Make it as a DB. That's a DB. And port group is for 400. VLAN ID is 400. Okay, click next. Finish. You can see the differentiation between these two. See here, what it is going to show here. Here, how it is going to represent here. See the communication. What is happening? Is there no adapters? If I assign any virtual machine to this particular switch, I can assign. I can connect virtual machine to this port group DB server. But how the packet is going to travel? Packet has to travel, right? How it is going to? There is no outside connection. What is my outside connection? One of the physical port of this ESXi host. There is no NIC card is available. There is no sense to create a virtual switch without having a physical adapter, physical NIC port. So even I'm going to assign a server over under DB server. I'm going to assign a select a port group. I'm going to show you port group tomorrow, how to create a virtual machine. While creating a virtual machine, what are the options I'm going to show? If I assign a finance port group, the packet can travel from this port group to this particular switch. From this switch, it can go to outside world. But here, if I assign a server, deploy a server, and selecting a DB server port group, but how the packet is going to travel? There is no outside traffic communication. So I can use the same switch if I have only two NIC adapters, on my ESXi environment. I can use those two NIC adapters and I can create n number of port groups. I can create n number of port groups. I can create even management network also on this. Each function it is going to perform, but all traffics are going to go through this particular adapters to outside world. I told you this particular port group, how we call it as a uplink. Why? Because it is connected this particular switch. Where it is connected? It is connected to switch. From this particular physical port, it is going to communicate outside world and connect to one of the switch. It is sending communication, establishing communication between switch to switch. Then it is called as how many uplinks are available. I can say 2 uplinks are available because 2 NIC cards are connected. These 2 NIC cards are connected to outside a physical switch. So it is establishing communication from physical switch to inside ESXi host virtual switch. By default, the basic rule, if you establish communication between switch to switch, it is uplink port. Now, this uplink port by default acts as a trunk port. What I told you, trunk is nothing but it is going to allow all packets by default. All packets in the sense, the packet has to travel with VLAN ID 100. The packet has to travel with VLAN 200. The packet has to travel with 300. At the same time, if I have management interface also, different VLANs, different data packets, all packets are going to travel on this particular port group. So by default, it is trunk enabled. Trunk enabled in the sense the trunk is nothing but it allows all packets by default. Wherever it is connected, this particular physical port, it is connected on a physical port of this physical switch, right? On this physical switch, it is going to connect a port group. On this particular port group, the network engineer is going to enable the trunk. By default on ESXi VMware virtualization layer, by default, whatever the port it is connected from virtual switch to outside, by default at the switch layer, at the virtualization layer, by default, it acts as an uplink, it acts as a trunk. To allow 100 packet, 100 VLAN ID packet, 200 VLAN ID packet, 300 VLAN ID packet, that packet has to reach outside world in the sense, these packets, all these packets traveling through which port? One of the NIC card port and reaching to this physical port. If the packet has to send to respective destination on this particular port, that network engineer makes sure the trunk is enabled. Okay, on ESXi host layer, the virtualization layer by default trunk and uplink by default enabled. No need to do any configuration. Okay, so what we are creating, we created a virtual switch. To create a virtual switch, what is necessary requirement? At least one NIC card. Okay, with one NIC card, I can send communication. Why I'm choosing a second NIC card? To maintain a redundancy. To maintain a redundancy, if any issue comes with the respective port or respective cable, my systems on my ESXi host should not get impacted. That's the reason I should maintain a redundancy. By default, any server comes with respective ports. On the respective ports, I'm going to choose two NIC cards to establish my production environment. Same way, I can create, if I have my physical server only two NIC cards, on the same switch, I'm going to create management interface also. I am same switch, I can configure virtual machine traffic also. How to create a switch, how to create a virtual machine port group, how to create a management. If you want to choose management, we need to assign IP address. Virtual machine traffic port group is meant for sending communication from ESXi host to outside world and receiving packets from outside to inside world, inside ESXi host. Whereas in management, for management, vMkernel port group meant for it is on established management function. The packet has to bidirectional by default. Okay, source to destination. Clear? This is the all topic about virtual switch, how to create a switch, how to assign a NICs, what are the policies are available, how to create a port groups, how to create assignment. Okay, tomorrow we are going to see virtual machine creation. While creating virtual machine, what are the requirements? We fulfilled all the requirements for virtual machine creation. CPU available, RAM available, storage available, network available. We are ready to proceed with respect to VM deployment. Tomorrow, we are going to deploy a physical server ESXi host installation, and then we'll create all these port groups, and we're going to create a virtual machine. This virtual lab is not available. We cannot power on VM. We can connect VM, but we cannot power on VM. We'll see that tomorrow session. We'll see that what are the things are available creating a VM, how to perform actions. Tomorrow session all about ESXi host deployment on a physical server. We have a lab, one physical server available. We are going to deploy ESXi host on physical server. And once deployment is done, we are going to create a virtual